Thank you so much for joining, David. We really appreciate you sharing the knowledge you have when it comes to centralized product feed management and, focusing on that. So before we dive in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about the company that you work with.
My name is David Waltzman, and I head up strategic partnerships at Feedonomics. And so Feedonomics, just from a high level, is a product feed management platform. So we work with folks that are selling online and help them take their data to different shopping destinations. And so from a partnerships perspective, I deal with where data comes from going into our platform and where it goes to, really just with the aim of reducing friction points in the ecosystem.
Great. Thank you so much. And I want you all to utilize the chat box. Feel free to chime in with any questions or any points that you like that David's sharing here. And when we get towards the end of the session, then I will dive into the questions. That way you can really connect and get the answers you need. So to set the tone for this, I'd love to hear on a basic level, what is a product feed?
Sure. It's something that everyone doesn't run into every day. But essentially, if you sell something online in an e-commerce store like a Shopify or BigCommerce, Magento, etc., you have a lot of great product information to sell on your site, but you commonly want to advertise other places online. That could be Google, Facebook, Amazon, and so on. And so to do that, you need what's called a product feed. And it's essentially a table of all of your products and all the attributes about them that you want other people to know.
Great. So if a brand already sells on their e-commerce store, then, are they all set, or what are things that they need to keep in mind when, they're already out there in the space?
Yeah, so it's definitely a great start, and it's definitely table stakes to have your own website and be selling there. But what we're finding is that people really want to get to transact where their customers are already. And so that may be a marketplace. It could be a social media platform. Really, the more destinations you can be at to be present for your brand, the better.
So when you have the product feed, who typically owns that or is in charge of it, and why does it matter of who's the one leading that?
Usually the one stuck with that bag is the performance marketer. And so if a company has an internal marketing group, then that might be an SEM analyst or a marketing manager. If you're using an agency, then those would be digital performance marketing agencies that are looking to increase your ROAS, your return on ad spend, on a variety of different destinations.
So some people work on in-house with this, or sometimes with other agencies. I'd love to understand when it makes sense to work with another agency. And, you can even give an example with Feedonomics of course, of just like, how can a partnership like that work with an existing company?
Sure. So we started off really with a focus on working with digital marketing agencies, and that's where we got a lot of our initial growth. I would say our mix now is probably about 50-50 between working with brands directly versus agencies. I would say that one's not better than the other. It really just comes down to your core competencies and how much of the process you want to own. I think that there's a lot of agencies out there that bring a ton of value and industry expertise as to what all these different, let's say, to all the unique challenges of different shopping channels. But we're also seeing a trend right now where a lot of brands want to own their tech stack in-house, and now tech includes marketing.
Okay. And you just touched on shopping channels. What would you say are the most popular ones with your clients?
So I would say almost 100% of them are on Google Shopping. For those of you that aren't familiar with Google Shopping, you've probably seen it every day, just haven't known it's called Google Shopping. So if you were to type a search for red shoes online, you initially get this bar at the top with some pretty pictures and prices. Those are Google product listing ads, and that's part of Google Shopping. So everyone's going there, definitely. And then I would say our second most popular one, about 80% of our clients go to Facebook for dynamic product ads. So that's a remarketing tool. So if someone's been to your website and then goes to Facebook, Facebook knows and reminds you that you still need to buy those red shoes, which is probably one of the coolest and scariest things out there, but that's how the internet works.
It's pretty
Uh,
amazing how powerful it is.
it's probably going to pop up in my feed now for red shoes when I get off this call.
I'm sure it was. It's pretty wild when, my phone, I mean, it's like they listen to your conversations of what will be, pushed towards you when you didn't even type in, but yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'd say our third top destination would be Microsoft Shopping, which isn't one that I would say might immediately come to mind, but there's about 140 million people a month that go to Microsoft Shopping, and it's much less expensive because it's not as crowded from an advertising perspective. So those would be the top three that we see.
That's great to know. And I didn't even think of Microsoft Shopping, but I mean, like you said, it's different opportunities because the costs are much lower to be able to try to be into that. So that's really great. And so with all these different platforms, different ways to share your product information, share that data, does that mean that you can just, send the same data, product data everywhere, or, how does it work?
Yeah, if only it were so easy.
Yeah.
So sometimes folks want to sell in different places, and they're not able to because the data can't meet standards. Sometimes they are able to get their data to these different shopping channels, but they don't get a lot of traction. And the reason for that is all these different shopping channels and marketplaces have different data feed specifications. So for example, on Google, you get 150 characters for a title, 5,000 characters for a description. But imagine you were scrolling on Facebook after this and you saw a 5,000 word ad. Right? Like that just sounds ridiculous, right? And so if you're trying to do that right now, it's not working. And so our team, we have about 100 analysts or so internally, understand all these different specifications, and will optimize data for our clients to be appropriate on each of those channels.
Mm-hmm. So you have to really customize it to each one. That may take more time, but I mean, if you really want to up the chances of someone buying or converting, then you have to do it.
Absolutely. And you brought up before, should someone do this in-house or through an agency? I mean, this part of it is not sexy. It's all the data cleanup and the editing. And so it's much more efficient and a great way to maintain your sanity to have us do it for you.
Great. And I want to ask you about this term called social commerce. So what is it and why is it important?
Sure. So when you go on social media today and you go to Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Snap, etc., you think about hanging out with your friends, seeing what's new. When you want to buy something, you'll go to Amazon, or maybe you go directly to a big box retailer site like a Best Buy or a Target. But what's neat is this trend coming right now of social commerce, where those two things start to blend together. And the reason why that's really important for brands is that they don't want shopping to be a distinct activity, right? If you're talking with your friends about the latest and greatest stuff, you should just be able to click buy right after. And so we're seeing a lot of traction right now. Facebook, I think, is a pretty good example of exposing all these commerce surfaces, Facebook Marketplace, check out on Instagram, and there's several more down the pipe. But it's an exciting time because it's a much more emotional draw.
Mm-hmm. Especially since, I mean, it gives companies an opportunity to take advantage of what's top of mind of people. If you're already talking about a certain product or this new trend or something's coming up, some event's coming up, and you want some merchandise to get ready for going to that event, or just, I mean, we're talking about all these different products and services here for our businesses. And if it just was something that can just kind of, be generated, come to you, then it just minimizes the time from the thought and the decision to want to buy to, okay, great, here's the product, here's some services, here's some options for me.
Right. And buying online has been somewhat of a clinical process as a consumer, right? So even a site like Amazon has a phenomenal recommendation engine that they even had to make a little less phenomenal during COVID because they couldn't keep up with all the orders. Mm-hmm. But it's still not personal, right? It's personalized from a data perspective, but you don't get any warm and fuzzies when you're doing it. And if you think about the beginning of commerce and smaller towns and communities, shopping was somewhat of a social thing. You may have known your local storekeeper. They knew you, they knew your family. They knew what you liked, what events were coming up. And so this concept now of social commerce online, some elements of that is coming back into the picture.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of expand more on that, what do you see coming up in the market?
Yeah, so anyone with an audience now wants to be a marketplace, and they should, right? So Amazon's done phenomenally. They're the 800-pound gorilla in the marketplace space, and brands are getting a little jealous, right? Why should they be giving up, whatever the percentage be to Amazon? They have their own customers, and someone like a Target, who I think the statistics around 75 or 80% of the population in the US shops at a Target at some point during a month. So now they're building out their own marketplace. Walmart's farther along in the process already. Again, they're at a similar ratio, around 80% of people in the US shop at a Walmart. And so why not bring more products to their platform and keep them on brand?
Mm-hmm. So for people thinking about how can I expand and be able to have their own channels and things of that nature, how can you kind of get the most bang for your buck? Because there's so many expenses with business, and then adding this to it, how can we kind of make it work and kind of, weigh the cost benefits?
Absolutely. So with Feedonomics, we're very attuned to that. We started working with small merchants and over time have graduated to global enterprise. And so we have a flat subscription model, so that as your business becomes more successful, or if you're already $1 billion business, we don't charge a percentage of those revenues. We just have a flat subscription fee based on the quantity of products, where we're serving them, et cetera. And this has been critical during COVID, especially because let's say there's a brand who did 90% of their sales in store and 10% online. During COVID, that ratio has flipped. And if they're paying services a percentage of their revenues, those fees are now incredible. and on the Feedonomics side, they haven't been inflated. So I definitely say that's a good start. And then to check out channels that are growing and have the next generation in mind. For us right now, the biggest push would probably be for Snapchat. There's, for Gen Z and millennials, it's probably the hottest platform right now. The costs are way less than some other ones that are out there right now. And I think their collective audience right now has like around $1 trillion or so in pocket share. And that's due to grow to, I think, 7 trillion in the next 7 years. So channels like that are invaluable.
Especially, and then once you kind of get used to adjusting your data, your product information to each different channel, then you kind of get used to, because there's always a new platform. Snapchat is very, very young, and there's going to be a new one soon after. There's so many ones, I swear it feels like every day or every week a new thing coming out. So it's just kind of a matter of just kind of whatever, channel you want to take advantage of. So how can people, best be proactive with these different channels and kind of expanding from channel to channel?
Right. I would say that it makes sense to partner someone like a Feedonomics that's literally exporting to hundreds of different channels around the world. It cuts down your research time. It helps you understand more of the landscape and where other clients are seeing success. And then from a proactive perspective, with our enterprise service, you have dedicated technical resources that are constantly driving for improvements in performance for your existing feeds, but also for where you want to go next and make sure that you're armed and ready.
And how can people kind of make sure that they're armed and ready for, what they can do in-house versus, what do people need to do to, do as much as they can on their own before they make the decision to work with an outside resource?
Yeah, I would always be thinking about scalability and transportability. And so I mentioned earlier about marketing now being included in tech. It's really true. There's even companies now, or not even some, a lot of companies now have greater spends on their marketing technology budgets than their IT budgets, which is very different than definitely different than 20 years ago. And so I think it's really important to hone in that marketing tech stack and make sure that it can go wherever you need it to.
And for, anyone who is kind of new to this, this is the information you just shared is kind of the, the first bit for them to kind of dive in and be made more aware of how important the product feed management is.
Sure.
What's, to help them kind of think about what should I take away? What do you see is, one of the most important things for people to remember with focusing on their product feed?
When you think about your titles, which indisputably is the most important thing for an ad, don't think about what makes sense to you and what you're proud of. Think about what people are searching for and the reasons why they want to buy. We integrate those things into titles like the brand, the product noun, the color, the size, the material, lots of different attributes that people may be interested in that isn't maybe the reason why you made the product, but would be the reason why someone buys it.
Mm-hmm. It always comes back to the buyer, right?
Yep.
I think sometimes people forget when they're thinking about, the look, the experience that they want to have for the website, the products they put together and their vision for it. But then you think about, okay, well, we want to be able to move this. We want people to, purchase it to make profits, and obviously for people to be able to enjoy and, use the products. Right. That we can forget how, people have different minds. They get creative and they might find a different use that you might have not originally envisioned for it.
Yep. Absolutely. I think a great example is, let's say you're looking at Nike shoes. On their website, there may be a landing page for the Air Zoom Pegasus, some new fantastic shoe. But unless someone knows they want to buy an Air Zoom Pegasus, they're never just going to search those words randomly. And so enhancing it to something like Nike Air Zoom Pegasus black running shoes size 12, right? Like that's much more descriptive. It's going to find people further along in their buying journey, which means you're going to have higher conversion rates and a lower cost per click with more highly relevant to your landing pages. So that's kind of what keeps us going.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it. And for anyone who wants to learn more about Feedonomics, to connect with David more, please go to the expo area. They're right there and have their own virtual booth. And obviously they're there to share their services with you to make this a lot easier for you, because I know for me, I personally don't sell products, but I know that I would not like the idea of trying to figure this out. And if you don't already have a team member who already leads all of this, then it might be a great fit for you. So I recommend this is an opportunity to be able to connect with someone that can help you. And it's a great opportunity for you to be able to capitalize on what you just learned right now and to move forward with this. So as we wrap this up, David, is there anything else that you'd like to share with everyone?
No, thank you for having me today. It's been great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, the next session we have coming up is on about, all about taking care of your partner program and how you can take that into an international context. So make sure you hop into that session, and I'll see you in a moment. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.